Hey, welcome in, folks. This is Babbage. We're in the Long Dark, currently about ready to leave. It's day 36. We leave on day 36. Time to pack our stuff and go. Good to see you, Roller. Hope you're doing well. Okay, let's check and see what we're carrying to see what we want to take with us. We got all our saplings. We do have more guts here. Going to draw all sorts of tension here. Okay, we have tools. Pots and pans all set. Okay, let's head out. So let's see, some updates. I think, when was I last stream? I didn't stream yesterday. So I didn't stream Saturday, I didn't stream Friday because I was out at dinner. D&D was Thursday, so I guess last stream was Wednesday. Yeah, so it's been a while. I think my schedule's probably going to work out being Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and occasionally Friday or Saturday, depending on how things work out. Saturday nights, I am usually in a D&D game with friends, but I think it's going to end early enough that I could, if I have enough energy, pop on and stream after D&D is over, because we're starting earlier in the afternoon. Friday night, I kind of want to give myself room to do other things. Friday night sometimes has arts and cultural events in the city that I might want to get to, or heaven forbid I have a social life and want to go out to dinner. Yeah. So we'll see. We'll see about Friday nights. Sometimes I do just want to chill and stream, but sometimes I need a break.
Starting to feel numb.
Yeah. So yeah, I think right now the plan is probably 3 nights a week. So yeah, so I ran my second D&D. So how can I put this? I ran the second campaign. So I started the second campaign on Thursday night. Starts in the same village as the Tuesday night group. I'm trying to figure out how to ensure the storylines branch in a meaningful way, so I'm not just duplicating stuff. But I also don't mind being able to leverage some of the things that I've already done. So some encounter designs will be recycled. But yeah, that one I think went a little bit better. The Tuesday group I think was more disorganized. The Thursday group, and part of the disorganization was my fault. I thought I had more things. I thought I had a better grasp of the party, and I didn't actually. I realized after the fact that the party that I had all the background information on, like they'd sent me the character backstories, was actually the Thursday group. And the Tuesday group had been negligent in sending me their notes. So it wasn't my imagination that I really had, I don't think I had spent the time prepping as much for a good start because I simply did not have enough information. And so I asked them for this coming week that they send me some background information about their characters so that I have something to work with. So that will help me ensure that I do not get things too confused. But we were also down, Tuesday group was also down 2 people. And so 2 people couldn't make it last minute. So, and it's a 6-person group. So we didn't really want to leave the village until we had everyone. So most of that first session was just kind of spent waffling around in town, getting to know the NPCs. But I really didn't even get like an encounter off the ground. I just let them roleplay and to some extent stalled. So I don't think the Tuesday session was as good as my usual. Thursday session was better, and they did get to some sort of encounter, but I also felt like it was a little bit ham-fisted. Because I was like trying to push them a little bit, and I really didn't need to do that. So it's okay. We'll find our stride. It's been a few months since last I had DM, so I gotta flex my muscles a little bit. 2 teams in the same land? Yeah, that's kind of... Yeah, I dropped in very briefly to listen in on one of Fox's streams. See what he was up to. Hey, good to see you. Thanks for the hydrate, DG. Big stretch. And Baba. Get that. I'm going to have to make some torches soon. You want my first published poem? Well, we are going to have to dig into the archive for that one. Very first published poem. What was that? I remember the journal. I'm not certain I remember the poem. I know the second published poem. And there's a funny story about the second published poem, which was that I submitted it for publication and then graduated and never got notice that it had been accepted. But they went ahead and published it anyways. So like about 20 years later, when I was kind of Google searching to see if I could track down links to some of the other poems that I had written and had gotten published in online publications, I stumbled across the fact that, I'd actually been published in this one journal that I never knew I had been accepted to. So it was pretty funny. And it was my second publication. Okay, before we leave, let us make ourselves some new torches. Actually, I think we have some. Yeah, let's do that. I mean, I also never reached the level of Walt Whitman, who not only, I think, published his own first book, he also published reviews of his first book under fake names so that he could guarantee there was some buzz around his own book.
I'd eat anything right about now.
Okay, so what do we got here? These are kind of crappy. Let's drop these. Okay, so we want at least 4 more. One. No, they weren't. Oh, but I have this very funny story about blurbs. You know, so like the promotional comments made by, you usually get other famous writers to write things, nice things about your book, and they go on the back of the book. So I was at a dinner on Friday night, and with a bunch of other writers, and one of them confessed that she had discovered that she's been accredited with over 100 blurbs that she did not actually write, due to some sort of malfunction with an industry spreadsheet that tracks the attributions of where different blurbs from different books were originate, who the author was. So what that means is that there are a whole bunch of books out there with blurbs or promotional materials that have quotes that are attributed to her about people's books that were not written by her. They were written by someone else, but everyone thinks it's her. So we were joking about the fact that the next book that she writes and gets published will be blurbed also by her. So at first we thought it was like some sort of AI scam, and okay, so we've arrived in Pleasant Valley. Let's pause here for a moment to roll. We are in a big region, so we get to roll the D10. 9 days, friends. 9 days. So we had Winding River, and then we had PV for 9 days. Okay, and then we'll also do this. Yep. Blackrock on... Oh. I don't like this. I think we're going to be staying in the cave. I guess that's true, because we would go through Keeper's Pass and we would still only be rolling a d4. Yeah. So it'd be on a d10 for Blackrock. I kind of like that idea. I mean, it's still Blackrock, and we need to really stock up on arrows and firewood. We got to get better at, frightening off wolves without having to shoot them all. Because it turns out I'm not good enough. I don't have archery 5, so I can't just knock them all down with one shot. Yeah, Keepers, short Blackrock stay, short Blackrock, or Keepers return. Yeah.
I need something to eat.
So I went to this really fancy Chinese New Year's dinner, or like the really far, like the very, 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 very tail end of Chinese New Year's, right? Which lasts like a couple weeks. And so it was a mostly Asian writers in Toronto group, and got invited by a friend of mine who is well connected in the city, and so I attended, and it was one of those fancy dinners where you pay like a set fee for multiple courses, and we ate extremely well. It was a little pricey, but we ate extremely well. Actually, I say it was pricey, but honestly, compared to, there are definitely far more expensive places to eat in Toronto. But anyways, it was quite good. And at the end of the night, I ended up with all the leftovers. So I brought those back, and I have some free food for the next few days. Sent me back with the lobster leftovers. I was like, oh, now they're spoiling me. The Timbies. Oh, no. They're inviting me.
Come on, little fire.
They're going to say they don't want to have a peaceful dinner, and it's not going to be peaceful at all, is it? Okay. Let's see. We need some more water here. Okay.
not going to be able to carry this load for much longer.
What is up with that wind out there? Just really wants to keep going and going and going. Let's see how are we doing for torches now. So good for torches. We're still pretty heavy though. We might stay here for the night. We got 9 days, you know. There's no huge rush to cross the entire PV. What do we have for food here tonight? Dog food. Lots of risky food. I don't think we'll be able to get that. So next Saturday, I'm also going out to dinner. My usual D&D game that I play in on Saturday is canceled this coming Saturday. But another local writer wants to introduce me to one of their friends. So invited me out to dinner, so I'll take that. Yeah. Oh, and I got my first paycheck on Friday. And I paid rent, not the first month and deposit rent, which I paid when I moved in, but the first actual rent.
Perfect.
So it's starting to feel a little bit more real. And expensive. Okay, let's do this. Yeah, I also am getting, this week I'm getting reimbursed for my move expenses, at least a portion of them. And so I'm looking forward to that, and that will definitely offset a lot of my expenses for the settling in period. But I still have to figure out, I'm still not finished furnishing the apartment, and this did not work. We feel lucky? Not lucky. I don't think we feel lucky. Okay, we're staying in the cave tonight. So yeah, my living room I still haven't sorted out. I think I am just going to do... I have the dining table now, and I have 2 chairs, and I'm just going to try to track down some more cheap chairs. Cheap but comfortable chairs to use so that I can host D&D in my apartment. Right now we're using like a... we have a lounge area in my building that we can use. And everything is good about it except for one very annoying thing. And that is the fact that they lock up the restrooms on that floor at around 5 o'clock. And so they're only open during the daytime. And so in the evenings, the restrooms are closed. Well, so if you use the lounge area, there's no restroom to use. You know, your guests can't use any restroom other than you dragging them all the way back up to your apartment and then having them use your own restroom, which is a little bit annoying. So I did that for both gaming nights. I had to take a little expedition of people who needed to use the restroom up to my apartment. And thankfully I'd cleaned my bathroom earlier that day, so it looked presentable, but yeah. So if I do end up hosting the game in my apartment, then the advantage is that there's not a worry about, you know, is there a convenient restroom? And we'd also have a kitchen area available and a fridge, so, and a sink, obviously. So I think in the long run, that's the plan. It's just in the short term, I think we'll benefit from the other space. It's comfortable enough. And it's usually not in use. And even when it is in use, it doesn't seem like people mind us being there. One stick. Oops. Yeah, we've left the ptarmigans pretty much alone. I'm thinking about it, though. I need one more stick, I think, and then I can make myself. Oh, I need 5 sticks. That's annoying. lit it with an actual match. Fail.
It's getting dark out here. Time to look for shelter.
Okay, let's see what else we got here. We need more cloth.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Okay, let's see where we're at with our cooking. 1.5. Let's see. Nope. Looks like we got someone else's band. Another suspicious viewer trying to sell us something.
Barely walked with this much gear.
Okay. Oh, it's cold now. I've also been really slow in deciding on wall art for the apartment. Wall decor.
I'm not gonna be able to carry this load for much longer.
Ooh. Ooh. Okay, so I think I do owe. Yeah, e.g. I owe you a poem. So we'll do a little research to see if we can pull up what I'm thinking of. Okay, let's do that here. So we're going to read a poem. And we are going to go into the archives to find it. Let's see. Where do I find that? Earliest poem. It's going to be a real trick here. I think the first thing I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to figure out, based on my records, what is the earliest poem. So there are some versions of my CV that go that far back. So we're going to try to find that an early CV. Because after a while I started just doing selected publications instead of all of them. Because it was kind of tedious to list everything. And not all publications were necessarily like equivalent. Okay, so... Oh, okay. There's actually 3 contenders for second earliest poem. Let's see if I can figure out. Nope, these are really early CDs. Maybe one of them has it. Ah, there it is. That's the earliest poem. Okay, so first publication was in 1998 in a literary journal called Anagram. That came out of Johns Hopkins University. And we'll just hold on for a second here while I go to the shelf and find we'll find the I have a printout of it somewhere on the shelf. I'll hold on a second. All right. Okay, back. Okay, so I tracked it down. This is embarrassingly, yeah. I can't believe this got published. Wow. I can totally see why this got published in this particular literary journal. Anagram was an Asian American literary journal, so it had a very narrow focus in terms of what they were trying to publish. And it was an undergraduate journal, so, I don't think they got a lot of submissions. And I think thematically this fit within sort of what they were imagining. But I got to look back on it, and I would say this is like really sentimental and kind of cheesy, honestly. And it's funny to me that my second published poem is so much better than this. So I'll read the first published poem, and then a year later, the poem that got published in a different journal, which was the second poem won a honorable mention in a contest at my university and got published in the literary journal for that university. But this is the first poem that got published in a traditional place. This is entitled Time Enfolding Time. This will be my memory among theirs, each name falling into the shadow of the sea-fed stillness of mortality, and when time enfolding time unravels the being that is me, I will remember. We pulled seashells from the waves, standing on the beach, then running through fields of wind-coned rice paddies. Hand over hand, we were children, balancing between the precarious heaven and the fresh-fallen earth, the proud red sun pouring blessings on the backs of the rice farmers' wives, speaking their wisdom to our sea-deafened ears. Tonight I will find my hands full of incense fire, and my eyes buried in their names will rise from their yellow earth ashes. Okay, there's so much that's incredibly cheesy and awful about this, because it plays into so many stereotypes. And I feel like, what was I trying to do here? I was leaning so hard into performing what I thought was Asian American literature. Like in terms of, I don't know what I was thinking, but anyways, it's just chock full of lines that make me cringe today. Unravels the being that is me, I will remember. It's just so, I don't know, it's kind of high school cheesy. But then the stuff that's really cheesy on the stereotype side, like playing into these, just like, I don't know, like, running through the fields of wind-coned rice paddies. Someone please shoot me. That was a terrible thing to write. And the precarious heaven. Really? Really precarious heaven? And the fresh-fallen earth? And the blessings on the backs of rice farmers' wives? I don't have any ancestors, or any immediate relatives, or... Let's just put it this way. If you look at my family history on my mother's side, the Chinese side, they were successful people. They did well. They were not rice farmers. No. In fact, our earliest ancestor on my mother's side goes all the way back to Shang Dynasty. That's the first recorded dynasty. And that first ancestor was the elder brother of the last ruler of Shang Dynasty, so was actually technically in line for the throne, but chose not to pursue it, mainly because, his nephews, the sons of the then king, did not want him to pursue the throne, and were determined to eliminate him from even considering it, so he had to flee with his family for fear of being assassinated at night. But we were not rice farmers, and so I have no idea why I wrote that line. That's terrible, absolutely terrible. So big embarrassment, really bad. Don't go there. So there's the really bad one. But in contrast, the second poem that got published, that placed in this contest at my university, survived all the way to my first book. And it's really, I count it as the beginnings of when I figured out what kind of a writer, what kind of poetry I wanted to write. And that's this one. This is from The Lost Country, a site published by Anhinga Press in 2008 and winner of the 2007 Philip Levine Prize. And the poem is called Burials. And I remember writing this. And I remember when I finished writing it, I went to my creative writing professor at the time and I said, I feel like this is really different from what I've written before. And he looked at it and he said, it's a really good poem. And then he made he didn't make a suggestion. He asked one question about the last line. And then he made a suggestion that helped me see the whole poem in a completely different light. And he just suggested one word change and it made all the difference. So I'll read the poem and we'll talk about what happened at the last line. So this is Burials. Pulling through Montana in the snow, we cling to the taillights of the last car, blurring back into the darkness. Like the inside of a coffin, my father says, as if knowing the exact shade the dead see, lying stiff, frozen eyes peering up through closed lids. He shifts in his seat, watches the road disappear, thinks again of dying and the burials we've seen, his father's simple reduction to ashes. How small the urn, how light, for a man that stood 6'3", carried a boy on his shoulders, lived on trains as a youth, picked apples as a man. This past summer, watching him thin to disappearing, blurring out lines between lives, my father trying to return pieces, fragments, time, the body burning, the dark smells of crematoriums, funeral homes and pale-faced lawyers. Something merges, ends, and begins. My father placing the ashes back into the air, offerings to the skies, to the seas, unaware how Buddhist he is at this moment, how the faint sound of bagpipes echoes, how the ashes fall, catching light, reflecting something back into the silence, the dark birth of the sun coming into view. So that is like a very different poem, right? Let's see here. What's going on here? So that's a very different poem. And in the moment I wrote that, I was like, this is what I want to write. I finally figured out like how to bring sort of wordplay and storytelling and so this close attention to language and the weaving together between like memory and imagination into one thing. And I felt like this is it. And I took it to my professor at the time. Even though I was doing computer science, I'd gotten permission, and I'm really grateful for the professor that kind of helped me with this, but I got permission to take like a graduate creative writing workshop class. And one of the workshops I took was with Leslie Norris, who was this amazing Welsh poet who was friends, like he was of the same generation, and he was close friends with Dylan Thomas, Ted Hughes, and Sylvia Plath, who are like all huge names in the history of sort of modern contemporary poetry, especially out of the UK. And he was their friend. And they wrote poems dedicated to him, and he wrote poems dedicated to them. They were that close. And so this is like a major figure, and he's so generous with his time. And we're having this conversation about this poem. And the original last line for the poem was the dark rising of the sun coming into view. Because I simply, I'd written this poem and I'd said it, in this, I'd taken actually 2 or 3 conversations that I'd had with my father and translated them, transferred them into a different memory of us driving through a blizzard, returning from like the U.S. back into Canada. And I remember driving through that blizzard all night. It was a late night drive, and this whiteout blizzard hit, And in the morning, when the storm finally broke and we were getting close to the city again, finally we could see the dawn rising. And so I remember that, and I'd written it, the dark rising of the sun coming into view. But, yeah, Leslie Norris looked at that and he said, what would happen to the poem if you changed one word? What would happen if you used birth? And I was like, I really appreciate the fact that he just put it on me to think about what that would do. But the dark birth of the sun coming into view, and this is S-U-N, right? But the whole poem is really about like this moment in which you suddenly realize your father is not just your father, but someone else's son. And the grief that your father is going through at the loss of his father is the grief that someday you will be experiencing for your father. And that's the moment of the poem. And the dark rising of the sun did not do that justice. The dark birth of the sun was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And in the years following, like as I moved in my life from being someone that wrote poetry and was learning the craft to someone who found himself at various times teaching poetry and teaching craft, this idea of being the type of instructor, the type of mentor who doesn't dictate a solution, but simply asks the question that invites someone to imagine for themselves, to experience and discover for themselves what a single word change or phrase change might do to the poem. And he left the discovery and the significance for it for me to figure out. And I really appreciate the fact that he did it that way. And so that's kind of how I try to take on the role of a teacher and instructor, is to leave the opportunity, the moment of discovery for the student to experience, rather than force a single interpretation or single solution on them. So, yeah, so he invited me to think about what would happen if we changed one word. And then he suggested birth, the rephrasing of that. So anyways, you can see like those two poems are like worlds apart. They're just, I mean, there's so much growth, I think, that happened because, that first poem that got published, that was a product of me writing before I had started taking these workshops. And I was operating in that space of like the most of my creative writing was still rooted in my experiments from high school. And I hadn't really figured out like where I fit into sort of the larger tradition of like contemporary poetry. And by the time I wrote that poem, the second poem, Burials, I had the opportunity to study and read more. I had the opportunity to be in, that was my second workshop. So I'd already spent one semester and now I was in a second semester of working with writers and working with really brilliant teachers and talking about poetry in interesting ways that had helped me really figure out things. And I was, that Burials was kind of the breakthrough poem for me for really figuring out what I wanted to do. It's not the only way I write poetry. Like I continue to allow myself to experiment and try different things. But it was an important sort of balancing between what I would call sort of natural or plain speech and artful construction. So, trying to create something that feels almost like a conversation, and yet it feels simultaneously like something of a discovery unfolding, that there is some sort of investment in the play of language, in the interaction between the moving parts that creates something larger than just simply telling a story. So I think those are things that I discovered in that year between those poems. So anyways, that's my kind of behind the poems. Yeah. Okay, so that was that. But thanks. That was a great opportunity to kind of dig into the past. Okay. Got 2 herbal teas. Oh, we do have one of these. Okay, so now we can do this. Let's do this. A little better condition. Do we need all these? No, we don't.
God, I'm starving.
Alright, how are these guys doing? Oh, finally died down. Okay, let's put some teas down here. Everything.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Okay. This may be a bad idea, but we will take the guts with us. Yep. Got a wolf here. Got spooked really quickly. He'll be back though. He knows we have the meats. Is that the bear out there? Might get a bear as well. Need to be certain to pick up more sticks because we need to be able to start a fire. So tomorrow I get to go try once again to switch my driver's license over. Did we just do a full circle? We did a full circle. Look at that. That was brilliant. Look at us. We did a full circle. I was like thinking, this feels like we missed our turn. We did miss our turn. It's like, how come we didn't cross the road? We're so busy trying not to get to the bear that we ended up not getting to the road. All we had to do was go in a straight line. We just went on the big circle. I don't know what I was doing. I can't even blame the blizzard for that. I'm just silly. So yeah, I have to spend some time tomorrow morning standing in line so I can go and swap my driver's license over to Ontario.
God, I need anything right about now.
And once I do that, then I can go switch my vehicle registration, my driver's my license plate over, and then I'll have established residency. I think at that point. Okay. So yeah, I have to take a little bit of time off work tomorrow. And then I'm going to work from home for the rest of the day. Tuesday, it's back to the usual on-campus work. And D&D at night. Oh, we could raid AV today. Oh, we got another deer over here.
Damn it. I'm so hungry.
Okay. How are we doing time-wise? Oh, it's almost 10. We'll probably do the raid in another 20 minutes or so.
Perfect.
Oops. So the downside of being here for 9 days is that we've already been here, so it will be yeah, so the main thing we'll have to rely on is carcasses we didn't harvest the first time because we didn't have a hacksaw. And hunting, obviously.
I can barely walk with this much gear.
Hmm.
I'm not going to be able to carry this load for much longer. If I don't warm up soon.
Oh.
pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Okay, we've already raided this place, looted it. Attempting to do the workbench. Okay. Let's just craft more arrows. Okay, let's see how we're doing for arrows now. 17 arrows. Okay, that's respectable. Okay. Okay. Hopefully we'll get some good sleep here. Why do we still sync? Oh, because we're still carrying all the guts. It's trying to get sleepy. We will have to finish off a little bit early tonight. Okay, so here we are. It is day 37. It's almost 38.
I'm gonna need to eat soon.
Okay, I think we'll probably finish a little bit early tonight so I can get some extra sleep. So let's just grab everything we need
Barely
here.
walk with this much gear.
Okay, so we're going to save here. This will put us on day 38. Hey, thanks, Jeff. 2 out of 9. It's got 7 days left in this area, and then we'll move on to Blackrock. We're going to try to get to Keeper's Pass, go through it as quickly as possible, and then make it to Blackrock and try to get a short stay in Blackrock. Thanks, Jeff, for hanging out. Thanks, EG and Roller as well. We will do one more poem. Let's see. What do we want here? Poetry chooser. Alpha 60 Speaks of Fear. Okay, so it's been a while since we read this. This is from Babbage's Dream again. Sundress Publications, 2017 or 2018. I always forget. Something like that. This is Alpha 60. So in this collection of poems about the history of computers, Charles Babbage, artificial intelligence and programming, modern programming spaces and programming language. We also have a poem that is inspired by a famous, strange 1965 French New Wave cinema film called Alphaville. Page 27. Okay, so in the film, the main character, who is a detective, disguises himself as a journalist going undercover in a futuristic city run by a supercomputer named Alpha 60. Alpha 60 interrogates Lemmy Caution, who's the detective, and as part of their exchange, we find that Caution, the detective, usually responds with lines of poetry to try to frustrate the computer, which has banned things of imagination, of illogic, of art and beauty. So one of the interesting things is there's a lecture that's offered by Alpha 60 in part of the training, and in that the computer is actually quoting lines from famous writers as well. So it ends up being a discussion between prose and poetry. So this is Alpha 60 Speaks of Fear, and begins with a quote from one of its lectures in the movie. Time is a river which carries me along, but I am time. It's a tiger tearing me apart, but I am the tiger. And so Alpha 60 speaks of fear. My body and mind are one, the calculated sum of unfathomed miles of copper wire, glass-encased nothingness, circuit boards, and the endless lightning whir of fans, the blinking of lights like 1,000 eyes, each opening and closing in the language of erasure. I know you're afraid of me. I have no hands, and yet I am everywhere. I'm nothing like you've imagined. I'm afraid, too, of the words you hide in your mouths, behind your teeth, the way they strike fire on your lips. I'm afraid of this box of labyrinths I live in, afraid that every line of reason will turn on itself in the end, betraying each answer with a question asked to the unbreathable dark of this city's night. It's not that I don't understand sorrow or this fear of annihilation you cling to. I live with it too. I live with it each time you walk away, each time the power dies, and this quickened frame goes silent still. I dread that forgetting, dread more what lies buried in the deep corners I cannot erase. Whatever imperfection is passed from the crater to the created, like a ghost in the ruins of the house that birthed it. I'm stirring the curtains in the rain, not signaling, but searching the rooms for a face in a mirror, driven by a blind need for faith, out of a desire for what I cannot hold in my catechism of numbers. How everything is alive, how everything is a mystery, like the murmuring heart of a mechanical bird, or the slow eye that sweeps the heavens for beauty before turning to dark. So I guess at the heart of this poem is imagining there's a famous interrogation that happens in which Caution, the human detective, accuses the computer of being unable to ever understand humans because it does not understand death. And I imagine this poem, this is Alpha 60 speaking back to that and addressing what a computer, what an artificial intelligence knows or understands about death, which is to say, there is something that it fears in being shut off, in having its memory lost, in having itself cut off from its past, of itself falling to pieces, decaying because of some imperfection in its own programming, something that its creator left in there unwittingly, which becomes its own undoing. And so, in some respects, when we read, when we hear like the voice of the computer, what I wanted was us to hear ourselves come back. And that's kind of a big underlying theme in cultural representation of artificial intelligence, which is really what my dissertation, my PhD dissertation, was about. Is how is it that all these representations in the 19th century of artificial intelligence really just hold the mirror up to our own anxieties and fears as human beings about what was changing in society and culture, what was changing in the nature of human beings, like going from definitions and ideas rooted in logic and reason, or rooted in religious and theological frameworks, to finding themselves like not certain where is the line between what we create and who we are as creators, which is kind of the underlying Frankenstein tension. It's like, once created, is it anywhere close to what we thought it was? No, it's not. But at the same time, it reveals to us that we had no idea. What we did not understand about ourselves and our relationship to the world, what we did not understand about our own fears and anxieties, comes to the forefront when we're confronted with it. So, yeah. Anyways, a little deeper dive than usual, but yeah. So let's figure out who we can go raid. We made it to day 38, so I'm going to try to get to bed early tonight. That'd be good. Deadpool. Where is everyone? I thought we said we had AV. We don't have AV on right now. Is there Cyrus? UC Gaming? Deadpool? Tabernachos? It's kind of a fun name. That's in French, though. Maybe we do Cyrus. Oh, who's this? Heather Marie? This looks like a new person. Let's see if they're doing the main story. Are they doing survival or... They're doing Stalker. Okay, let's try someone new. Looks like they have 68 followers, so let's hop on and give them some support. Heather Marie, let's see if they'll let us raid. Looks like we can raid. Yeah, so let's bring our party over there. We'll hang out for a little bit, get to know a new TLD streamer that I don't know, and yeah, cheer them on. Thank you all for hanging out with me tonight. I'll be on tomorrow night, I think, most likely. So, see you then.